right, welcome back. The United Nations General Assembly proclaimed this to be the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. This was done in part to draw attention to how critical the survival of Indigenous languages has become around the world.
Well, fortunately, there are growing initiatives across this country to revitalize Indigenous languages, and our next guest is a pillar in this effort. She's an Anishinaabe leader and advocate, Misko Giizhik Kwe, a.k.a. Red Cedar Woman. Welcome to The Social. Welcome.
Good to have you.
So, Misko, you say your journey with your language reflects the experience that a lot of Indigenous people have across this country. Can you explain that a little?
Yes, so with that, I didn't start my language journey until I was about a little girl, about 10 years old, when I first came into community on the reservation. And prior to that, I was only learning French, going to public school and things like that. And so for me, with that experience, it was a culture shock, I didn't know anything about my culture, didn't know anything about my language, but from then on, that's when I felt that connection, because I started learning about my identity. I started learning that my grandmother was a fluent speaker and she wasn't able to pass that language down. And so, there's that generational gap, and I'm part of that result.
All right, so as we mentioned, the UN has drawn attention to how critical the survival of Indigenous languages has become. So what makes it so urgent in your eyes?
It makes it urgent because when we lose our languages, we lose not only our identity, but we lose that ancestral knowledge that has been passed down for many generations. So for me, I think about the connection that I have to the land and to my community. Without the language, I wouldn't have that. For me, and a lot of people from across Turtle Island, when we don't learn our language, we feel like we have this hole in our being and in our spirit. And so it's urgent to reclaim our languages back, because we lose our ceremonies, we lose our way of life without it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Some people may or may not know this, but back in 2023, the federal government here reached a $2.8 billion settlement with Indigenous communities for the loss of language and culture. So that money is now being used to revitalize languages throughout these communities. Now, you actually sit on a board that decides how to use this money, which is so powerful. So what initiatives are you seeing and then implementing?
So I'm the Eastern Regional Director for the Four Pillars Society. I'm really proud to have that. Thank you.
Clap that up.
And with that, we have 326 First Nations across Canada that are in this lawsuit. And what I'm seeing at the board level is majority of these communities are gearing their initiatives to language. And I think they're gearing it to languages because it encompasses heritage, it encompasses wellness and healing for our Indigenous peoples across Canada. And so some of the things that I've seen is they are hiring elders, and they're creating language hubs, and they're ensuring that their language isn't going to be forgotten.
You also say that technology is vital in the revitalization of Indigenous language. Can you break that down and explain to us how there's a connection?
So I recently just attended Indigenous Global Language Summit, also known as Waves 2025, and they had a whole day dedicated to technology. And some of the things I seen there was that they had a hologram of an elder who could speak the language, and you can converse with it. Whoa. And I was like, what the heck? Like, this is the future, right? And I used to be on the fence about technology and language, because it's sacred, and it holds it's a spirit, right? And so seeing the technology thing, I was like, okay, that really changed my perspective, because it's about the future. It's about the future generations, and so that's how we best serve them.
That's incredible.
That's fascinating.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. You've actually said that for some Indigenous peoples, there's some fear and trepidation when you get into this conversation around language. What does that mean exactly? What does that look like?
So with the effects of residential schools, right, we were forbidden to speak our language. We were forbidden to practice our culture. And so for me, I had to find that within my community through the different elders and community holders. And so there's a fear around that, because a lot of people grew up in the Western world saying, this is bad, this is horrible, you get punished for it, And, a lot of many horrible things that happen to my people for just practicing their language and culture. And so there's that cutoff, there's that disconnect, like if I practice my culture, I'm gonna be, seen as something invaluable to society, And so there's that fear, because it was instilled into our people. But other than the fear, I also see the resilience, and I see the strength, and I see the honorable work that my people are doing to ensure that our languages stay alive.
Yeah, great work. And I'm curious, how has learning and reconnecting with your language affected you?
It's been quite a journey, because previous to, being so involved with language, I also struggled with addictions, alcoholism, and even homelessness. And I have siblings that look up to me. And not only that, but future generations that are looking up to me to ensure that we keep our languages alive. Because I've always had a good knack with it, right? Like, it was just like, it came naturally to me. And so when I decided to really take on this language journey, I also put down the drugs, I put down the alcohol, and I made a better lifestyle for myself.
Good.
Connecting to some of the discussions we had earlier in the show, how do you think that Indigenous language revitalization, maybe moves us more collectively towards reconciliation?
Yes, you can. For me, I would like to see more things in the media. And what I mean by that is I really got excited about Star Wars and the Ojibwe dub. That's actually what got me into Star Wars. And then just having that excitement, I can only imagine what younger people think, so seeing it more in media, having accessibility to language like French, I want to be able to watch my shows in Ojibwe or Oneida or whatever language I choose. And with that, it also opens up avenues for non-Indigenous peoples to learn languages. I really I think it's important that non-Indigenous people learn the languages because it's the original language of this land, and it creates more authentic relationships when it comes to truth and reconciliation.
I love that. Well, we understand that miigwech means thank you in your language, so Misko miigwech.
Miigwech.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Hey, you, come a bit closer. We've got so many more must-see interviews, spicy debates, lifestyle tips, and pop culture moments. So subscribe to our channel by tapping the logo below and don't miss out.